Welcome back to Divorce the First Six. My name's Peter Maestri, and I'm going to be your host for today. We have with us today Erin McLain. She was married for 10 years and she has two kids. And let's give her a warm welcome. So, Erin, welcome to Divorce the First Six.
Oh, it's my pleasure. I'm happy to do it.
Let's get right into it. What was your first 6 months like?
So, my first 6 months were amongst the best I had ever felt. And what I mean by that is that I had a sense of freedom and liberation and a sense of hopefulness that I had not felt in many, many years. So, the first 6 months for me were really wonderful and amazing.
So, when you say hopefulness, what does
Mhm.
that what does that sound like?
So, the nature of my marriage was one of pretty substantial emotional and verbal abuse, psychological abuse. And so when I was able to break free from that, there was a feeling of like, oh, I have my life back. And who I had become when I was married was somebody that I didn't even know and didn't even recognize. And so to have the experience of returning to really who I truly am deep within myself and starting on this new path was, it was like just this massive sense of relief. Like I can finally breathe again. And so I always knew deep down that I was destined to have a great life, but it was likely never going to happen as long as I was in the marriage that I was in. And so in the first 6 months, I started relating to myself again as somebody who was going to have a great life. And I was having an experience that that was actually going to happen. Like my daily emotions and feelings were like, oh, wow, this is like, this is what actually, like, this is what joy and happiness actually feels like. Inside of that, I can now see ahead that this great life that I've always fantasized about will be available to me.
That sounds amazing. That sounds like a storybook. What were some of the and
Right.
you were
Divorce, a storybook for anyone.
I'm just saying that if you were in the theater, I would totally go watch that movie. What was your source that inspired that? And what were some of the steps that you took, like specific steps that you did?
Yeah.
Was there a routine in the morning? Was there something that you did in the evening? What was the consistent pattern that gave you access to that?
I have been a student of many, many different modalities and personal development disciplines and, self-help books and therapy and courses and workshops. And I mean, anything that you could possibly imagine. It might be relevant to mention that. So what I do for work is I'm a professional life and business coach, and I had gone back to school last January of 2019, to get some more training and development for my coaching business. And so in March of 2019, my husband and I made the decision to split up. So we split up during coaching school. And so I was surrounded by 25 other professional coaches who I was in coaching school with, along with the faculty who were teaching. And so I had a massive amount of support on a pretty regular basis. I mean, at any time if I needed to. And that's not to say that, people should choose coaching over therapy. People should definitely do what's best for them. But given where I was in the moment, it worked for me and supported me that I was able to get, really regular, extraordinary, powerful, deep coaching that supported me. The other thing is that I exercising a lot. There was the fancy gym that I always wanted to be a member of, and I had been a member on and off over the years, but wanted a space that was just for me, not for my kids, and that had all the fancy lotions and potions and amenities. And I really wanted a space that was going to motivate me to go and get away from my house and my kids and just have time for myself. So I did that. In the process of doing that, I actually got a hernia, probably from lifting heavy weights. And the crazy thing is, if you or your listeners believe in this kind of energetic stuff, is that there's a book called You Can Heal Your Life by Louise Hay. And there's an index that has the sort of the negative thought that matches up with whatever your ailment or disease or condition is. And for hernias, it was ruptured relationships. And I mean,
You have to love Louise Hayes.
you can't make this stuff up, you know? So anyway, so I have been I practice a specific type of meditation. I've been doing it for about 6 years, called TM, Transcendental Meditation. And so that was already firmly in place. So I did a daily meditation practice. As I mentioned, I was in coaching school, getting a tremendous amount of coaching and support from the people. Knew from the moment that the decision was made to end my marriage that this was happening for my highest good, and that it was not something bad that was happening to me, but rather it was something that was happening for me. And one of the things that I had always been searching for, or had really struggled with over the years, was I wanted to have a better relationship with myself. Like, there was this niggling sense of like, I'm not living up to my fullest potential, or I beat myself up so much, or I'm really hard on myself. And I sort of like knew that I did that, but I didn't know sort of how much it was actually affecting me, and the extent to which it was really getting in the way of living this great life that I wanted. And so throughout the process of actually getting divorced, and in the first 6 months, and all of the support that I was getting from the coaches was around this whole world of that this was happening for me, for my highest good. The thing that I felt that best supported me: how are you being triggered by this? Like, what are the parts of little Erin, picture childhood Erin as a little girl, and what is it that she's being triggered by that needs some healing and some love? The reason why I felt that was such a perfect way to coach during this process is that was really the only thing that I could actually control, was how I was personally experiencing what I was going through, and how, because what happens over there with the other person is just not something that I can really do anything about. And so the extent to which I could control my own responses and own reactions and own triggers to things was really the only way that I was going to be able to navigate this.
Do you think that if you would have known that before you got to the point where you were getting a divorce, that would have made a difference? Because that's like huge, to know that you're accountable for your own life.
I doubt it. I think that the person who I chose, I just don't think that there was a strong enough foundation. Let's just say that.
Yeah. Got it.
Yeah. I mean, I think that that's probably one of the most helpful things that I can do going forward in a new relationships.
Yeah. It's like you
But
discovered it at the right time so that you can create the new you.
yes, exactly. Yeah.
How did you nurture that tool, that new insight?
So let me think about the sequencing of this. So I have a friend who's a coach. She does more corporate coaching. And she and I had coffee about a month before my marriage ended. And we were talking about work and our coaching clients and various things. And this was when I was newly in coaching school and just about to launch this coaching business. And so she said, we just had a great time at coffee. So that was in February. My marriage ended in March, and then fast forward to June. And I was at the swimming pool at my fancy health club that I had joined, and I saw her, and we were in the water swimming. And she said, "Erin, it's Gigi." I said, "Oh my God, Gigi, I have a lot to tell you." I said, "I have 6 coaching clients and I'm getting divorced." And she said, "Oh, was that your book over on the lawn chair called Disarming the Narcissist?" And she said, "I noticed that her mother was a raging narcissist, and this something that she had worked through, over the years. So naturally she would notice someone reading a book called Disarming the Narcissist." And I said, "Yeah, that was my book." So she said, "Oh, there's another really great book. You got to read this one. It's called Dodging Energy Vampires."
Oh my God, I'm
And
writing this down. Dodging
yes,
energy vampires.
Dodging Energy Vampires, written by Christiane Northrup. And I had never heard of the term energy vampires. So I'm reading this book and I'm like, oh my God, this is totally me. Like, I'm an empath and I was married to an energy vampire and was noticing all these other relationships that I had had in my life, either with, ex-boyfriends, people I'd worked with, female friends. I was kind of seeing all these patterns, like, oh my gosh, like I attract this as an empath kind of thing. And there was a reference in that book to a woman named Melanie Tanya Evans. She's Australian, and she has a whole recovery program that's an online course that's called NARP, Narcissistic Abuse Recovery Program. And so I signed up for her course and I started doing it. And the general philosophy is that, and this was a little bit of what my coaches were teaching me and coaching me on, is that the type of trauma that I experienced in my marriage gets stuck in our bodies at a cellular level. And so a lot of times what we do is we go into therapy, talk therapy or cognitive therapy. And by the way, therapy's great. I've done it off and on for 10 years and it makes a huge difference. And then sometimes you can kind of get stuck with something that just you don't ever seem to kind of move off it or really make any progress with it. And so the work that Melanie does in her NARP course is really around releasing the trauma that gets stuck in your body in a somatic way. And so I had this tool, and every time I would get triggered about something, I would go to the modules. So that's what she calls it. She has these modules. And then there's a forum where you can post questions and answers. And I swear I'm not like a paid infomercial for Melanie Tanya Evans and her NARP program, but it was just, there was nothing that made a bigger difference for me in my daily experience of how I felt and moving along the path of recovery than doing these modules. So no amount of talking to a friend, no amount of coaching. And I think for me personally, and the type of abuse that I experienced in my marriage, that was the specific thing that I needed. I needed to like purge this from my body. And there are a lot of modalities that can do this. I just happen to find Melanie's.
That's a wrap on another episode of Divorce the First 6 Months. Don't forget to hit subscribe for more insights. Take care.